Okay, so what does this have to do? So it's just I've got to put the caption in. So do that.
Is this your full-time job now?
No, part-time. So I do this part-time. Still got my day job.
I feel like you're like I'm friends with this person, so I'm not like comparing, but she's a coach too, and but you're just like very powerful.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet of you.
Truth.
It comes with past, you know, it comes with a lot of baggage that I've had to let go of.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Natasha. Now it's at Natasha Arora, isn't it?
A-R-O-R-A.
Cool, cool. Oh my God, what's happening? I'm just tagging, doing the post, and I'll just try one more thing on your name. Does this work now? Yes, now it's letting me tag you on the actual caption. Great, great, great. All right, just hitting the go live button. Righty. We are live on Facebook, people. As I always say, it's so exciting. So this evening, I've got a special guest on tonight. Her name is Natasha Arora. She's a spiritual activist and a content creator. And tonight's topic, we're actually going to be talking about something that's very powerful, which is how to empower your mind and live aligned. So came up with this topic together, and it's I think it's something that's really near and dear to my heart, but also to Natasha as well. So you can tell it rhymes because she's a natural with words. But yeah, so Natasha, she's interesting because she's different from some of the people that I've interviewed in the past, because and I guess the reason is that Natasha and I actually know each other from, like, we met 10 years ago.
Let's
20?
It's long. I feel like it's longer than 10 years. Yeah, it's like a little bit over 10 years.
Yeah, so we used to work at the gym together at Fitness First back in Sydney. And yeah, that's how we met, and sort of like I got to know her a little bit back then, and we sort of been in each other's shadows for a few years. But more recently, I actually saw that you had some posts on Instagram, and it really resonated with me. Like, I love the way the language that she uses, and she has a lot of topics that I'm very passionate about as well in terms of empowerment. So I thought that she'd be a great guest to have on to share more of her story, and also more about this empowerment that I think a lot of people need during 2020 and beyond, right? Next year as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you so much. I distinctly remember working with you over 10 years ago and thought you were absolutely lovely, and I'm so glad we've been able to stay connected for all these years, and for you to see me from me really as well. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm so glad we're on this path together, and I've always had similar interests, looks like it, fitness, health, and and now this journey as well when it comes to growth and personal development, spirituality, whatever you'd like to call it.
Yeah, so I guess, it's been a while. There's lots of change that obviously you've been through as well. Share with us a little bit of, I guess, your story, where you're from, what kind of led you towards this journey that you're on now.
How much time do you have? So my story and where I'm from. So I'll start from the start, I guess. So born in Sydney, but family is from India, so North India, and always been in Sydney, and grew up in a family that was half, like from my mum's side, quite spiritual and I guess maybe religious, you'd like to say, in the Hindu aspect. And I, unlike most Indians, I wasn't like a student my whole life. I was like a little bit different, I felt, to the rest of my family friends in that way. I was more sporty and creative, and just kind of loved more experiencing things. And then I guess as an adult, my journey was also quite different. I was always finding myself, I guess, if you could say that, but there's no self to find, right? It's there. So straight out of high school, when like shortly before we met, I, like most people, went to university, although I didn't really know why I was going to university. I just knew as an Indian girl I had to go to university. My parents were telling me since I was really young, and I realized, I guess, in my second year of university that most of the time I'd spent partying. I had no idea how I'd passed any of my subjects. And
me too.
When we could actually go to King's Cross and stay there till late. So
as we do.
when there was no lockout laws. But yeah, so in year 2 I was kind of like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just doing it because I think I have to. And that's when I was working at the gym. I think shortly before we met, I was a receptionist at Fitness First while I was studying at university, and kind of just realized I wasn't connected to what I was doing. I didn't know why I was at university. So I took a step back and started to look inward. So this is kind of where I would say, like, my true journey like started to unravel. I found one of my dad's books, which is based on the Dalai Lama. It was a Buddhism book, and just started reading it because I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I don't know why I was drawn to it. Started reading it, and outside of that, shortly after, did like a whole range of self-development courses. So I ended up deferring university, and through these self-development courses and feeling more like connected to who I was, I got the courage to be able to, I guess, ask for what I wanted in life and just do what I felt more connected to and more passionate about. And I remember, like, this is like a very distinct memory in my life. I deferred university and was like, okay, I want to become a personal trainer, but my dad's going to laugh at me and he's going to say no. Like, I was living at home, I was living with my family, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And I remember I planned what I was going to say, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to say because I need his okay to do it. Yeah. So told him I wanted to help people. He gave me the approval, and I was so surprised. I was like, I literally was expecting a no. He did finish it off with, until you figure out what you want to go back and study. And I was like, okay, like, that's a bit of a jab. So anyways, that was meant to be my stopover career, being a personal trainer. That ended up kind of booming and doing really well, like in the first 6 months of doing it, unexpectedly. And I ended up making that my focus for about 6 years. And I did go back to uni. I decided to study communications with a journalism major because when I looked inward to understand who I was, I realized I just loved writing my whole life. Like, I was like, that's it. Like, there's nothing else outside of sports that I like doing and do naturally. So even though I studied part-time when I went back to uni, because PT was kicking off, and that expanded like to group fitness, and just had a lot of fun with it. Like, it didn't feel like a job, it was just like an expression of who I was. So it got to about 2015 or 16 where I was getting a bit bored and was like, do I open a gym or do I try corporate? I had a bit of a doubt. I was like, being Indian, knew like mostly lawyers, doctors, engineers. Like
as an Asian culture, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had a bit of like a doubt. I was like, am I like really different to everyone else? And this is, what I am meant to do? Like, am I meant to do something that is so different to everyone I know that is meant to be similar to me, right? So I had this kind of doubt that needed to be quashed. So I went back into the corporate world. Well, not back, I'd never been in. So I went into the corporate world, and it actually happened quite serendipitously because I got headhunted for a role which I never would have applied for in media. But yeah, I guess moving a couple of years forward, 2020 happened, and like everyone else, becoming more aligned with what we want to do and who we actually are. Just honoring this voice that's like always there inside of me when it comes to all of the years of I guess effort and knowledge I've put in. So what I didn't actually talk about is from the ages of 19 to 22, I heavily spent a lot of my time, money, and energy in self-development courses, and to the point where like my family and friends thought I was silly. Like, why are you always at this place? Why are you always learning more? Like, aren't you fine? Like, haven't you reached this point where you're done with it? And I didn't actually understand at such a young age why I kept wanting to go back. It just felt so interesting to me. And actually it got to the point when I was 24. So 19 to 22, 3 years of just heavy self-development learning. And that's when the change in my life happened, and became a personal trainer, and took stepped into like courage and bravery to follow these footsteps that never would have been possible unless I looked inward. I would have probably just completed a degree for the sake of it, and not really understanding why what I wanted maybe ended up in a job that I wasn't happy with, maybe married someone I thought was just okay just for my parents, something like that. I feel like my journey would have been completely different, and who I am right now would be completely different if I didn't, start reading that Buddhism book and going through that self-development course. And I wonder sometimes actually, like, I wonder if I didn't go, what would have happened? But so much time has passed that like I don't know myself without it. But so going back to my journey when I was, and I don't know if you wanted me to go in depth this much when you asked about myself.
No, it's good. Yeah.
So going back to when I was 24, so between 22 to 24, I'd established myself as a personal trainer, like really well in, my community in the hills, like, where we'd met. And, that was going really well. I had gotten into a relationship that was like a beautiful relationship, very deep, very emotional, and, saw like a long-term future. And it ended. It didn't work out. And when that relationship ended, I wanted to go back to the self-development. Like, I was like, I just want to spend my spare time around that. Like, I don't know what else to kind of do, actually. It just felt natural to me. And do you know the Buddhist temple in Wollongong?
Yes, I think I've been there once or twice.
Yeah, so my dad used to take me there like many times, like over, I think he loves that place. He'd take me there like when we were growing up.
Beautiful there.
So I probably lie when I say it's just my mum's side that's spiritual. Dad is definitely spiritual as well, more so as he's older now. But he used to, I guess, not believe, like verbally not believe in things when we were younger. So I remember saying to one of my clients, I wish the Wollongong Buddhist temple was like so close to home so I could just go there every day or on the weekend. And then he told me about an ashram that was in the hills, actually. And I was like, what, an ashram in the hills? Like,
interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't think so.
Yeah. And not a Buddhist ashram, a Hindu ashram. Right. And he was like, oh, like I can take you there if you want. I've been to like classes there occasionally. He was like, I don't go regularly, but like it sounds like this is kind of what you're looking for. Because I was just kind of like in passing telling him how I wish that Buddhist temple was around the corner, and went there, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what my mum was talking to me about when I was little. Like I went there and I was like, she was trying to make me go here when I was a kid. So he took me to the ashram, and I was like, oh, these are like, I ran into people like who I knew, like met when I was younger, and I was like, this feels like home. This is where I'm meant to be. And from that first time I went, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like I'm coming back here like every week. So to me, like I didn't want to go back to the self-development courses because firstly, like money, and it was as far from home, like in the city. Back when you're living in the hills, it's like an hour drive, right? Or an hour transport.
I remember that.
Yeah, so it's a lot of effort. So I was like, I wish there was something around the corner, like and easily accessible, and wasn't breaking the bank every time. And then it literally appeared, right? Like you put it into, like I've never thought about this, but I literally thought about it, put it out there, and it appeared.
Like manifestation. Yeah.
I was just like, I wish there was this, and then the universe goes, here it is.
Right.
But what I found even funnier was going there and hearing things that my mum would say growing up, and realizing that this is where she wanted me to go, right? She was trying to make me go to there. So from there, when I was 24, I would go to these classes every week. So I started going every Sunday afternoon to these, we'd call it like scripture classes. So we'd read like one of the texts together as a group and discuss it. So what I really loved about it is the caliber of people that would come there. And like a lot of them like are my Facebook friends. So if they end up seeing this, like, I think you guys are amazing. Like, like they are like doctors mostly actually that come there, and young people. So I was really impressed by the people that were like wanting to look inward. But for me, I think because I had kind of cleared my mind, like you'd understand what I'm saying when I've done so much work. Like when I was going to these classes and reading these books, everything was speaking directly to me. Like I was understanding everything on the paper, and it took my learning to the next level. Like, and I wasn't getting charged anything, right? It was like all on donation, which I'd give donations as much as in there, and everyone that goes there would. And I, through that, I ended up like going to India a few times and doing some of their courses, being around monks and like learning and just feeling so in tune with myself and the universe and like the truth of the universe. And like I still didn't realize at that point that was such a big part of who I was. Like I still had to quash some doubts I had, I guess, like, who am I? So going out into the corporate world helped me realize more who I am and what my truth is, and what's really important to me, which was literally actually always there. If I look back, even to when I was a child, and the things I would actually say or think about, like the other day, actually, I thought about something I would say to my mum when I was like 5 years old, or like between 5 and 9. Like cause my mum was a very open, she still is, she's a very open, talkative person. And because I'm the eldest and, like her baby, like, and a girl. So like I was like her little doll, I guess. So she was very open with me. And I remember when I was like younger, I would literally say things like I remember saying this directly to her. Like I would say, she would talk about her life, and I would say, if you compare yourself to someone lower, then you're setting the bar low. If you compare yourself to someone high, then you're going to work towards something. And I was like, you've got to set it towards something high. Like, I was like, what kid says that? Like, who was I? Like, but yeah, I guess that's kind of why I've always been drawn to, I guess you could say psychology or spirituality or self-development. Like there's so many different words for it, but it's like, I would say it's like the universal truth.
Like, and it's lots of different terminology and interpretations in terms of spirituality and what it means to different people. I just want to take a moment to take a moment to acknowledge how far you have come, and how much change it takes for yourself, but also just for people to go on that journey. Like, so many times have you referenced back to childhood, to what your parents have said to you, to like just those points in time where you followed the journey, yet something else was calling out to you, which is, you know, like the ashram and just this sort of that spiritual calling. That keeps sort of, and the self-development, like so many points where you've pivoted, but also something else has pulled you in another direction. So I just want to acknowledge like that. It's just incredible, and thank you so much for sharing that story. There's a lot to unpack, and I suppose like the more that you talk about it, the more that things come up for you as well. So I understand that, you know, like it's there's so many different types of memories. We could be talking for like 24 hours, I reckon, like on because this is life, right? You know, and from what you shared as well, like you can tell that Natasha is someone who's just very authentic and genuine, because of the way that you know, like that you have really been able to express yourself even in different areas. So yeah, I just want to take a moment and say thank you. But also, I guess what I want to move into now as well, what's really interesting is that you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation where you said you were always trying to find yourself, right? Which is displayed through the story that you've just told us, trying to find yourself, yet there is no self.
Exactly.
Right? That concept, and I've done, you know, my research as well, but you could probably explain it better. What does that mean?
How deep are we going to go?
Little snippets so people can digest it.
Okay, so let's make it, let's talk about, like, this is going to be fun for us because we've been in the fitness world as well, right? So
yes.
So let's talk about what we think our self is. So what we think our self is, firstly, that could be our body, right? So we think we are our body. Yeah. Secondly, we think we are our emotions, right? Or our feelings. Yeah. Thirdly, we think, right? So I'm going to say think because this is like the societal construct.
It's our consciousness.
It's the collective consciousness, and there are people rising out of it, like, you know, like there are people observing who are we actually, right? Like what. So okay, and then there's our intellect, right? So there's what we've learned, our knowledge. Okay, those are the perceptions of what our self is, right? And that is attached to our ego. So our ego thinks we are these factors, right? But so the body, the mind, and the intellect, these are impermanent, right? So the body perishes. Feelings come and go. So we can't. How can we be our feelings if they change, and our emotions if they change? And our intellect, we weren't born with that. We accumulate that, right? We do things to learn. So if we're not that, what are we? Because we weren't born with that, and we don't finish with that, right? But there's some, so I know you've meditated, right?
Love meditation. Does so much for me.
So and I know there's people who don't like meditation as well, so I'm going to talk about this in another aspect. And I didn't always like meditation, by the way. So coming from my spiritual family, being like, imagine being a kid and they're like, meditate, and you're like a sporty child that loves to run around. I was like, why are you making me sit there? Like, I don't.
Why do I have to look inwards? I don't want to waste my time being still.
No, it was my body. I was like, no, I was just an energetic child. So that's why they put me in so many sports. But okay, so let's talk about outside of the meditation that is perceived as meditation, like sitting there, crossing your legs, closing your eyes. Like outside of that, there's when you're exercising as well, right? There's a quietness you can also feel in your mind.
Mm.
Or when you're dancing, or when you're surfing, or when you're...
I call that flow state. I find sometimes I go to dance classes and I also feel like I'm meditating because there's nothing else that I'm focused on.
So when there's nothing else you focus on, what is there, right? So you call that flow state, but that's when I would say your ego isn't there, right? So when your ego isn't there and you aren't attached, there's your higher self, right? Or so you call it your higher self, or your soul, or your higher vibration, or like, or what?
Again, many terms.
Yeah. So, and the point I want to make actually before I talk about it is we don't want to get too caught up on words, because like people have many different meanings for one word, and this can usually cause confusion. It can cause conflict. So I want, like, if anyone's listening, just to be like open-minded when we're talking about this, and just kind of see how else you can interpret it. So when you say flow, right, so this could be like, I would call it our oneness, our unity. Yeah. So the truth, the highest truth is, because if we realize we're not our ego, what else is there? What else is that? We realize that we're actually one and we're connected. Yeah. And everything is impacting everything else. Yeah. Like literally. Like
just like energy. I think I had one of those conversations with one of my friends as well, where like it's just energy is everywhere.
Yeah. And that's a part of it. Like I view that as a part of it. Like energy flows. Yeah. So the universe, like it almost karma comes into that as well. And karma isn't I'm pinch Pauline and then someone pinches me. That's not karma. Karma is I do something and there is effect. There is always an effect of things we do.
So it's cause and effect.
Yeah.
Right.
So what we do always has an effect, right? And it might not come back in that direct same way, but it affects somehow, right? It affects someone else. And if we're all connected, then and the self, right? Once you realize you are not separate to everyone else, so you, Pauline, and I are not separate. We're connected, right? And not just so you can. A lot of people can view their family as themselves, right? So they can expand their self to their family, right? Like when you have children, you know, you get so protective. Like I don't have children, but like I have a younger brother who I'm, you know, who I was. I've always been completely protective of, and like almost in like a motherly instinct because he's younger than me. But when we expand our view of ourselves, then we literally, you know, if someone else gets hurt, or if, you know, if an animal gets hurt, like we view that as an extension of ourselves, right? So how can we let that happen? Yeah.
Right.
And that feeling, you know, when you meet someone and you feel like you've met them before, or you have like, you just feel
like people say like could be like past life, or just this energy or a similarity in some way.
Yeah. So I actually feel that a lot, and with like a lot of people, like not in like a weird way, but just like I feel like this deja vu with lots of people, but on different levels, right? And and that I think is based on their own journeys as well. Like I think I feel deeper kind of oneness with people who have learned the things I've learned, or experienced the things I've gone through as well. Like, but you know, I do tend to feel connected with a lot of people, and I think that's because I literally am able to see someone else just like me, like, you know, regardless of skin color, gender, age, you know, where they live, like they're just.
So you feel the oneness that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's not to say I've reached enlightenment, because it's, you know, dropping the ego, like that's what we're going to call it, dropping the ego. So the ego is the one who is like, I don't know why I've just called the ego a him. I don't know. This is not
it's just a thing, but yeah, typically we do call it a him. Doesn't matter.
It's like we don't want to make it feminine. I don't know.
Because it's quite I would say that the ego is quite a masculine energy though. in it, what its intention.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit more on that? Because I've never been able to explain it properly. I've read a lot of things and I understand the ego in myself, but as a concept, like to the everyday person, what is the ego trying to do?
The ego is connected to the body, the mind, and the intellect, okay? And your like, which we'll go through further on as well, but your expectations and your attachments, yeah? So the ego thinks there is an above or beneath, right? That, thinks that that's true.
Mm.
The ego lives in, the material world as the truth. I would say. Well, not seeing people as one.
Right. Yeah, I gotcha. So it's more about, I guess, like the levels you were talking about in terms of being above or beneath people in society. So let's say, like, if I go out and buy a Lamborghini, I think that I'm better than someone else. So it strokes my ego in a way, like it goes up.
Yeah. Okay. So temporarily.
That's one way. That's one material thing.
And the ego is the impermanence as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The ego also beats yourself up, right?
Yes.
The ego doesn't just feel good, but the ego also feels bad. Yeah. And the ego is addicted to that feeling good.
The other thing that I had experienced myself was the ego always wants to protect us or makes us be in survival mode. That's the other side of the ego as well, where let's say, like, you want to do something and then you stop yourself from doing it.
Yes.
Because you think that other people are going to think a type of way about you, or there's some kind of perceived fear.
Yes.
And that's also part of the ego's job, I believe, in terms of trying to protect you. And it wants to get its way, or it gets in your way as well, from fully expressing yourself.
You're right.
So,
and the self being the higher truth. So I feel like I'm able to define the higher self and the higher purpose better than the ego, because that's what I try and focus on. The ego is what suppresses you, right? It suppresses you. So for me, like, I can totally hear what you're saying. Yeah. So I don't know, for me, like, it's like if I focus more on the ego, then it's like actually almost like amplifying and heroing and obsessing about something that we're trying to drop, right? So I almost don't even want to give voice to it, because it's something that's in the way of the truth, right? And in the way of us reaching our higher purpose. Yeah.
Because you give it more power as well. Once you, like, it's like you want to do something, and then let's say, oh, nah, like, what are people going to think about me? Oh, I'm too scared and stuff. And then you give up. Then you give up. Then you're giving power. Then the ego goes, yes, I won.
That situation, right? So when you are saying, oh, what are people going to think about me, right? But the goal, right? So when you're in line with your higher purpose, it's not about you, right? It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Like, if you're actually, like, doing something that's aligned with your higher purpose, and anyone that, is living in truth, they are always doing something for others. I don't like to use the term helping, because even the term helping puts people beneath you, right? Because people, that higher truth, like, I don't know why I go here, but the higher truth is in everyone. It's not exclusive to people. Like, people have tapped into it better than others. People have tapped into it and others haven't. There's no better or worse, right? Just that some people have tapped into it.
Here's the thing, though. I'm curious. Like, if we have this higher truth that everyone has access to, right? Yet there's the ego that we battle as well. Yeah. So is there a purpose of, like, why some people haven't tapped into it, and Or is that more of like just a societal conditioning and plus ego that stops us from accessing our higher truth? Because I reckon there are probably quite a lot of people out there who, let's say like their lifespan is 100 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they've actually had hints of the higher truth, but some people devastatingly have never reached it, or they don't access it in their lifetime, maybe in another lifetime. So, but then there's some people who get really, like, they awaken to it. So for example, you have in your journey as well, have parts of it that's awakened in you so that you become more aligned.
And there's things I haven't spoken about that were like suffering I went through that led, I wouldn't have been led to looking inward if it wasn't for that suffering. So I do have a thought on what you're saying. I do have, it's not a thought, it's, you know, what I've been exposed to. Nothing I am saying, by the way, is like owned by me, right? Like, as I've said from the start, this is all like universal truth, so it's coming through me. So when it comes to like what I've learned through Hindu scriptures, right? Because we ask this question, like, why do some people have more money? Why do some people have less money? Why are some people born with more? Some people born with less? Why do some people get raped? Why do some people get abused? Like, you know, why does that happen? Why do some people have these experiences, right? So what I've learned and been exposed to through Hindu scriptures, so through Vedanta, I'm going to call it. So I don't like the term Hinduism for some reason. I'm not 100% sure why, but I think it sounds religious. But Vedanta is more like knowledge, right? Like the truth. So everyone is given a life based on their souls, and your soul is just like, you're a part of the universe, right? But you're on a journey, right? You're on a journey of growth. Okay, we get given a certain life to learn the lessons we need to learn and to go through what we need to go through for our soul's growth. So some people may not be drawn to what we're drawn to because that's just their soul's journey, right? So no one is wrong or right for whatever they're going through, and they may just be on at a different stage or a different path because that's what they need to go through, right? So some people are not completely drawn to, like, if I think about, so I haven't spoken about how, you know, even though I'm Indian, like most Indians, my parents were born in India, but they had an arranged marriage. Okay, mum was 21, dad was 26, so mum was literally a baby. Okay, they divorced when I was 13, and you know, it was a long time coming. So they were together for a good amount of time, right? But in my culture, that's not normal. Like literally 99% of arranged marriages in India Indians stay together. Actually has the highest divorce rate. Yeah. So if you want to not get divorced, just have an arranged marriage, guys. So anyways, like, both my parents are amazing people on their own. It just didn't work out. Okay. They're just two strong people that just had wanted their own way, just didn't work out. Doesn't make either of them wrong. Okay. So that's what happened. And I've come to realize that. But because of their divorce, I experienced suffering, and that was my soul's journey, I feel. Because I actually think if I had been born and they had no problems and they stayed together, and you know, I actually can perceive what my life would have been. Okay. And I would not have gone through the downs that made me look inward, like a lot of downs that made me go like deep, and I wouldn't have realized what I needed to realize. If I would have, you know, when I was younger, I used to wish I had, like, my parents didn't divorce so they had more money. Because before they got divorced, they had more money to spend on me. You know, one home had to become two homes. That costs money. Yeah, a divorce is expensive. Everyone, a divorce is expensive. Better to like work it out if you're married. Especially if you have
sometimes kids. not like, you know, it's just not the best situation. But
but because of the divorce, like, not only money, it was, you know, I had family members around me going through a really hard time, and you know, made me see things differently. So, you know, if things were perfect, I never would have looked inward. I know I don't think I would have.
I love that I love how you've put it in that way. So simple in terms of like this whole time, I was like, didn't know how to express this. But I love that you put it into it's the soul's journey. It makes so much sense because there is a path for everyone, but the way that you've interpreted it makes it more about, because you know how life is happening for you, not to you, when people say that. That now has dropped for me and makes sense because everyone has their own soul's journey or whatever name that people want to give it. So sometimes some people aren't really meant to reach their higher truths and others are, but that's why we're all sort of connected because everyone's path is different. So I guess some people are more of, some people go through suffering and then help to heal other people who are suffering. And then it's just this whole healing, rejuvenating, and there's people in this world who maybe don't suffer as much as others, but they also have a purpose. Maybe they're there to give the positive vibes, the uplifts, something else. So like you said, everyone is unique in their own path and way.
Like if you think about it, maybe my mother's soul journey was to have my brother and I. Like maybe she meant to give birth to us, and that's why my parents had to get together. And and my brother and I had to experience that as a family for whatever reason we had to. And then my parents had to do it for their own. So and everyone experiences suffering in their own ways, and like we really don't know like whether people are looking inward or not. Like we just don't know what people are doing. And when I was younger, like going back to saying when we were like younger and being born in Sydney, being a brown girl, and having, being forced to wear Indian clothes and pray and meditate and go to Indian parties. Like I was like, what is this weird culture you're forcing on me? Like, but the things my mum would say to me, like my mum would, like if there was an insect in the house, she wouldn't kill it. Like I used to think she was a freak. She'd like literally put it on like her hand.
Because she treats it like also quite sacred as well, just another being.
This isn't a lot. And I was like, you're a freak. Like,
yeah.
No one does that. Everyone just kills it here in Australia. Mum, can you just let me go? But like her beliefs was that like we are all connected, we are all one. And I was like, you're a hippie, I don't understand you. Like, but she was implementing her truth the way she knew how. Okay. And we all like, find our peace and our higher truth in our own ways. Like, there's people who like to hike or people who like to swim or so for me, I realized when we were like in the fitness industry, like freaking 10 years in the fitness industry, and I was like always elevated and happy and energetic and living at this higher elevated space where I was just always at peace and joyful and happy, like literally most of the time. And I didn't realize it was because I was experiencing a higher state. I didn't know.
That's amazing to be experiencing that for that period of time.
7, but like I was aware. But yeah.
Let's talk about have we talked enough about the suffering, do you think? Or is there something else that you wanted to expand on in terms of reducing suffering or something, or like the attachments, like where does it all link?
So part of the ego is like having attachments, right? So like whether it's an attachment to what you think you should look like or what type of relationship you want to have, what type of money you want to earn, how people should treat you, how you should be spoken to. Like attachments can be like something you expect in life, right? So something that you just need to have in your life. So that's what an attachment is. So you're going to know what you're attached to when you get disappointed. So when you experience disappointments or sadness or any of something where you're not in an elevated state, you're just going to like, what you want to look at when you're feeling downward, like down, is just going, what did I think I was meant to have in that situation? Yeah. So
Right.
what do I need in my life? Yeah. So attachments will disappoint us because if we're attached to something, then we need it to work. Like that is what our happiness depends on. Yeah.
So it's like almost that whole that ego comes into play because we want, well, when you say we need it, when we're attached to it, it's like we want to also control it.
Yeah. So
In a sense.
yeah. Now I'll try and give an example here that I can think of. For some reason I couldn't think of something myself. But okay, maybe like I'll start with a simple one and then I'll go a bit deeper. So like my car, I am attached to it being undented, right? So I'm very careful when I drive. Okay. And if I'm attached to it, then I'm going to be disappointed if someone runs into me. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And this is normal, right? This is like, it's literally what we see, right? It's there. But if it's like, okay, I've got it. I've got this car for a reason, because it is. And if you think of your higher purpose, like, okay, I'm helping people remove their limiting beliefs. Yeah. So if that's my purpose, I've got this car so I can get to my meetings, something like that, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm aware that things are out of my control, so it might happen. Yeah. So what's going to happen if you're aware of your attachments is then once you're aware of it, it doesn't have control over you. It has less control over you. So then, because you're aware of it. So most people, because we haven't looked into our attachments, we're not aware of it. Okay. So then when, say you have an accident, yeah, like say someone runs into you, you can deal with it more powerfully and peacefully and effectively. And, so you're not affected, right? You can just deal with it
like emotionally. You're talking about, because when you're attached and you experience the disappointment or in general the suffering around that need, then your emotions, their emotions get way more affected and sway you in all different ways, more so that actually, now there's probably a theory behind this, but when the emotions are heightened, we are less effective at thinking about what we actually need to do to solve the situation, or like how do we actually move forward. So for some people, let's say they get the car accident and their car's like dented and, oh no, I'm going to cry about for like, an hour, but nothing actually happens as well when you're clouded in the emotion, because then you can't like go and call someone to tow the car and let's move forward and let's take action to resolve this matter. I'm just talking in an extreme example, but I would say like that's something that would come up. Like,
exactly. Like imagine someone panicking, right? They have to deal with this, and then they're anxious, and then they're late to their appointment, and then they're not present with their appointment, right? They can't, and then they drive not present, right? After that accident.
And that has other effects.
Yeah. So imagine you have that accident, and you're like, because you know that you can't control some things in life, then you're present with the person who's run into you, and instead of getting upset with them, you're like, are you okay? Like you're with this person that's just had an accident with you. You deal with that situation more powerfully. And someone's run into you, and imagine you go to them, are you okay? And this person is expecting you to be upset with them, and you're asking them if they're okay. They're like, oh wow. Like, so you actually literally, like, without no purpose, you've assisted this person, you've provided something for them because you're at peace, because you're powerful, and then you will impact them. They will be able to deal with their life because that person's run into you. There's a reason, like they're dealing with something, something screwed up for them that they've run into. And if you provide that peace to them, then they can go away and deal with their life more effectively, right? And then that exchange is more like
meaningful and impactful. Although we've got a caution on that as well, because it's not we're not saying that, if you have a car accident and someone's died or something that's close to you, we're not saying that like you not supposed to be upset about it and let's just chirp on and not be in the moment and not cry about it for like days or weeks. So still embracing the emotions.
Yes.
But the differentiation factor is it the peace, or what is it?
I was going to say, what happens in situations like that, right? We view something like that, and I want to go into a deeper example as well, right? But we view that event as wrong, right? Like, this shouldn't have happened. Oh my gosh, like, this has ruined my day. Like, these are thoughts that will come up, right? This is example thoughts. Yeah, it's ruined my day. What the hell did that person do? Like, how dare they go to the meeting, complain about it at the meeting? So there's like a knock-on effect, right? And in that event of making it wrong, we've like lost our connectedness to our higher self. But in life, every single person is not going to have all perfect happy. Like, even if they've got the most money in the world and they're famous or whatever, like, everyone has up and downs. But the power lies in, and we've spoken about this previously, but like, the equanimity, right? So if we're going,
let's do that.
So being equanimous means, and this is where I think a lot of self-development courses become redundant, or you can see why they're making lots of money. Because if we're making only the happy right, then, and the wrong bad, like, we shouldn't experience that, otherwise we're a failure. Like, that's going to keep us going, like, making ourselves wrong and then chasing something, right? But if we're in a state where we're like, literally every single person is going to have ups and downs in life. That is just the nature of life, and energy flows and moves, right? Like seasons,
vibrations.
Like, there's summer, there's winter, there's spring. Like, we all go through seasons. And if we're open and accepting of those ups and downs, then that reaction that ruins our health gets disappeared, or that making ourselves wrong and feeling like a disappointment, and like, it disappears, because it's actually like, it's delusional to think that, only happiness and only ups is what we should be having. Like, it's just,
because it's life, and people come and go, just like, creation and death, and it's like this cycle that happens, so it can't always be the same. But if you expect it to be happy all the time, when there is like birth and then there's death, then there may be some lost meaning within that as well, or it's like distorted in a sense. If you're like, someone's grieving and you're really happy about it, like, then that's also distorted.
That's why there's that equilibrium, right? It's definitely distorted, right? That's exact. You've got it. So if we feel bad when it's like things that are going not right or in line with our goals, then that literally ruins the impact as well that we would have. So if we're just like, oh, it's raining now and there's nothing wrong with rain, okay, I'm going to get a bit wet, like, it's a part of how it is.
Not in our control.
But it gives you control.
Sorry?
It gives you control. If you're aware that ups and downs are normal, then you're not going to react and go like, in that down.
Like, having that awareness. I want to get your thoughts on positive thinking, because let's say like a down happens, right? It's like, had a really, really shit day. And then there's people out there who go, oh, don't worry about it. Think positively, right? Like, let's just get through this. It's all going to be okay. You get that. And sometimes it riles me up, right? Like, that could rile some people. Some people are like, oh yeah, like, let's just do affirmations. Let's do positive thinking. I want to get your thoughts on that, because I think that there must be a better way to deal with it. Like, because for me personally, I just, because I've let go of a lot of ego, not to say it doesn't come back, but I am fully, I fully embrace everything that comes at me, whether it's up or down, and I have no fear as to, what it is. I want to fully live life. I want to feel everything, right? That's just as a personal choice.
I think you're freaking amazing. You've done like sport modeling, you're a PT, you've been like, you studied heaps, you're like taking on this journey with coaching.
I'm a friend of change. I'm a friend of change, just like you.
We're both Scorpios as well.
Yes. So yeah. So in your opinion, is there in relation to this concept, perhaps, is there a better way to deal when or a perception change when things like life is chaotic or when things are down in the dumps?
Yeah.
Or suffering.
You should never tell someone to like, if someone's crying or going through something, you don't just tell them to think positively. Like, let people go through what they're going through and don't make it wrong. Like, you know, if someone's feeling a certain way, like, don't, like, I would suggest, like, it is okay. Like, it is okay they feel that way. Like, it's a part of life, right? We've identified the ups and downs of parts of life. So, you know, there's no wrong or right. There's just the ups and downs of life. There's, you know, the highs and lows, which every single freaking person goes through. If someone says to me they're happy all of the time, I would call bullshit on that. Like, you're putting on an act, man. Like, not that I would probably say that all the time, to be honest with you, but
yeah. But I'm talking about what about on the flip side? Okay, there's someone who's telling someone. Well, what about people who have convinced themselves? They're like, oh yes, I've broken up with whoever. Feel like down in the dumps. And oh, it's okay. Like, I'll just keep on going on. Like, and I'll just block it out, and I'll just convince myself that everything is okay. Do you think that has repercussions?
Probably, but also I'd probably say people just deal with things how they want to deal with it or how they have capable in front of them. But I would say if something's happened in your life, like you're experiencing a breakup, go through like there's definitely been a part of my life, Pauline, where I didn't let myself feel my emotions and I just was like focused on work completely. And
same here.
Yeah. And like I would cry once a month because I'm a female. That's the only reason. And I would just, you know, once a month things happen in my body. Like, so it would just happen automatically. I would never just let emotions flow. But that was for a short period of my life. But when you just like, I would probably suggest don't make yourself wrong. If you are going through something that is making you sad, just let yourself cry. Like, yeah. And like someone said this to me recently as well. Like, just if you feel an emotion, just cry. Like you and I were talking before this live and I didn't realize I was going to cry, but we were talking about something and I started crying and I was like, whoa, like there would have been a time in my life where like
you wouldn't have let yourself
cry.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with crying. Like,
it's nothing wrong with being sad and feeling different types of emotions, even anger as well. People are like, oh, you know, should not feel angry, but there are instances where that's just life. That's human conditionings. Stuff happens.
Someone else. That's all.
Yeah, but I think the main thing is, like, if you are angry or you're feeling some type of way, is that not to let it go on. Like, once the event happens, yes, you feel a certain way, but then you got to let it go at the same time. But not like letting it go mainly, like not saying instantly, but in terms of if you're wanting peace, since we've been talking about peace.
Well, anger is linked to ego, right? So if you're getting angry about something, you had an expectation. Okay, so attachments, I may have not talked about the word expectation, but you are angry if you had an expectation and that expectation did not get fulfilled. So your life is then dependent on that expectation. So the suggestion is to let go of your attachments and expectations because that's your ego, right? So if you let go of your attachment and expectations, that doesn't mean you don't have goals in life, right? Because your higher purpose is aligned with your higher self, which is the highest vibration. Yeah. So when you see who you are at your highest purpose, you will want to live at that level, right? And you live at that level regardless of the outcome. You have a goal, but it's not about the goal. It's about just living in truth. Yeah. And there are things you need to be able to live in truth, like money, a roof over your head. Like, you need things, right, along the way. They're like tools. You need tools to be able to live in purpose. Yeah. Like, if you don't have a roof over your head and money coming in, you can't, you know, have your coaching.
You'll be in survival mode.
Yeah, you need these things to be able to live in your highest purpose. Like, we need people living in their highest purpose. We need doctors. We need people like you making the world a better place. We need, you know, people who are making the environment better. We need, you know, people working in psychology. Like, these are all things, and government and law. Like, but when you're living in your highest self, you can do these things at a better level, right? And you're also not ending up doing things you're not meant to do, which is something we want,
which then leads to suffering, a lot of that too.
Yeah. And like, when you are living a life for agreement and based on attachments on other people or what other people think, then you'll end up in relationships and jobs, you know, in places where you're actually not meant to be, like, isn't in your sole purpose. And you might just be living at this average level, like energetically average, not like you might be making good money, like you might have kids, a family. Like, this doesn't necessarily mean you're living in truth with yourself. Like, when you're living in truth with yourself, you can feel it. You're passionate, you're energetic, you have energy that was you didn't ever have. Like, you know, like, people drink so much coffee, but like, when you're living in truth and purpose, like, you can have a couple of hours sleep and still be alive, right? So and what I see, and what I've also experienced actually myself as well, is when we try and make something work that isn't meant to work, it's force and it's pressure.
Or it's not for us.
Yeah.
But we make it work.
Well,
we try.
And we might, like, but it's so much freaking effort. Like, or we might, so I can give an example. Like, this year, like, was when I realized I was, you know, my last job where I left, I literally quit a job and I didn't have anything else lined up during 2020. Imagine doing that. But I just knew, like, I'd be fine. I just knew I'd be fine. And I just realized, you know, it just wasn't for me. And there's nothing wrong with realizing something isn't for you, right? Because you don't want to be wasting your time and energy, you know, trying to get along with people you're not meant to get along with, right? You need to be focusing your time and energy where you need to be. You don't want to be pressuring yourself to figure out how to do a job that isn't where you're meant to be spending this precious life that you have. So I realized earlier this year that I was forcing to try and make something work, and, you know, I wasn't feeling fully embraced who I was, and was trying to force some relationships. And I was like, whoa, like, I just started to, like, look inward again, and, you know, journal a lot and meditate and started to speak to people I was more aligned with. And that's when I started to acknowledge who I was, like, doors just started to open. Like, now I feel like I'm communicating with so many people who are just aligned with me. Like, I can look around and just count so many people where I'm just like, you are, like, thinking just like me. But when we're forcing a job or even a relationship, like, it doesn't feel natural. It's pressure, it's force, it's changing who you are to make it work.
Changing your identity. Fit the mold.
And finding yourself in this situation, there's nothing wrong with you if you're in this situation. You just have to acknowledge it and go, other people are on other journeys, and that's okay. I'm on a journey, and that's okay. Like, we don't need to all be best friends. Like, we actually don't all need to agree, because that doesn't make sense. We all have different purposes in life. We all have different things we're good at. Like, you know, we've got to stop trying to agree with each other. You know, we've got to be happy and okay for other people.
And I want to add as well, it doesn't mean, we're also not saying it's like, because some people get really caught up with, do something you're passionate about, quit your job, like, do that life, no 9 to 5s, like, you know, just do what you love. You still have to look after your needs.
Yes.
Like you were talking about, you still have to cover your basic necessities.
Yes.
Or at least the level of comfort that you're willing to that you want. And for some people don't have that luxury. Some people don't have that choice because they're just covering just the basics, and they've got families and things like that. So that's not what we're about.
Yeah, no, don't, like, if you don't have something aligned, don't just go quit your
Yeah.
job. Like,
Or
like,
like, oh, I've reached a higher purpose, yet I still haven't, like, you know, haven't built the relationships or like all that. Because sometimes, because everyone has a path,
yeah.
sometimes you're not like, at the time you're not ready for what's coming as well. These things may be planted along the way, but maybe it's not at that time. So if you feel that you're, you know, in survival mode, or you need to cover your needs, wouldn't suggest go and quit your job. Like, maybe you hate the people at work and all that stuff, but there time and place for everything. Or maybe or you still may want to tick some of those boxes, but find something that's more aligned, something that you at least don't hate, or, you know, enjoy to some degree, some kind of equilibrium, like you said.
Yeah, you're right. And like, you know, if there's someone who is in a situation where, like, you know, they are like struggling to feel like themselves, or be embraced as who they are at work, or like just can really feel that's just not working, like, yeah, like I would say, you know, keep going, look inward, right? And just have a plan. Like, I'd, you know, if I didn't find something, I'd figured out how I was going to work for myself. Like, but I found something that I feel really aligned with in my 9 to 5, and feel like I have people I can be myself around. And I think that happened by me trusting myself. And so I started to not force. I just realized, like, there's no point forcing like friendships, relationships, jobs, like, and I guess that's a huge thing to me. Like, I, you know, when I was 24 and I entered that relationship with someone who I thought I'd have a future with, I looking back in that relationship, I felt I'd changed who I was to be in that relationship. And I think that happens automatically for a lot of people, because they want love and they want to make it work, that they change who they are. But
they don't want to be rejected or be alone. That's very scary.
Yeah, but like, I'd made a commitment to myself, because I felt like I'd disappointed myself or done something wrong to myself, that I wasn't embracing who I was fully. And I, you know, made a commitment to embrace who I was fully, and, you know, never dim any of that for someone else. So then I would be with someone who, you know, would embrace all of me. Now, look, I'm still single, but I'm not, like, I've worked on being whole, complete on my own. Like, it's important to me, more than a relationship, to realize that the longest and strongest relationship that you're ever going to have is with yourself. So,
yes.
You know, if you're not going to be happy alone, you're not going to be happy with anyone else. If you're not going to feel complete on your own, you're not going to feel complete with anyone else. And that could be a whole nother topic in itself. But like,
yeah, that's the whole self-love and filling your cup first before anyone else. Otherwise it's just going to suck all your energy out as well. I want to, just curious, when you talked about the forcing, like feeling force and the pressure, do you feel that when you are forcing something, does it energetically drain you faster than if you were just doing something that was more aligned?
Hell yes.
Yeah, because I felt that way as well when I'm forcing or putting pressure on or trying to please others and prove myself and in those kind of positions. That's how I got burnt out in the corporate world. I just, all my energy was zapped, got sick, and it just kept going downhill as well. So that's when I knew that, like, it wasn't aligned to me but it takes a bit of work, because not everyone has that sort of opportunity. But once I stepped out of that environment and really just sat with myself, that's when things just started getting better. My health got better, and slowly, you know, like the alignment, suddenly I have all this newfound energy. And yeah, it's unexplainable though. It's just something that, like, you feel and it happens for you. Like, I haven't been sick for now more than 2 years now. So anyway, that's something else, but yeah.
We're aligned with your truth, right? Because it's not like everyone's job is to like everyone's soul's job is to meditate on a mountain. Like, we are here, like, we have desires for a reason, actually, like, to fulfill on those desires, or we're good at certain things to use them for a higher purpose. Yeah, so you're living in your higher purpose, so that's why you're feeling energetic.
Yeah, so thanks. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I was like, oh yeah, cool. Meditation, I think we touched on that, like something that you wanted to share. Thoughts on, I guess, stillness, like who wants to sit there and just waste time, and like just that whole perceived conception of meditation, like the benefits, like what's your views on meditation, and yeah, what does it do for someone?
To me, meditation isn't sitting down and closing your eyes and following something. Like meditation is a way of being. So, you know, when you have, like, you meet people who are calm and peace, right, and have a meditative presence.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like when I'm able to still my mind and observe my thoughts, that's a meditative practice. Yeah. So what I would suggest to people who don't like to sit down and meditate, and I think there's so many different definitions of meditation, like I'll put a YouTube video or like meditative on and listen to it, which that isn't something I do, or sit there and like repeat a word, like you can repeat a certain word over and over to focus your mind. Now obviously, having seen this since I was really young, like I've and I love that I didn't like it when I was younger, because when you question something and then you find a reason for it, then you've battled through, you know, what other people are battling through around it now. So both my parents had done, you know, the course called Vipassana.
Yes, the 10 days. 10 days of silence.
So they did that when I was really small, and were like, we're going to put you in the kids one. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to sit there and like, you know, be silent for so long. Like, so to me, meditation clicked in my mind. So when I started going to the ashram, and you know, I told you I'd been overseas and, you know, spent time with monks. Once when the monk had come here to Australia, he ran a meditation retreat. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, you know, I was on that journey, like I was learning. I was like, yeah, I'd love to like get into this practice. And at the retreat, and so there was a couple of retreats I have examples for. And it's unique to everyone. Like meditation's unique to everyone in their experience, because, you know, there's your own ego to deal with. So what I got the most of is when he got us observing our thoughts. So remember how I've spoken about the body, mind, and the intellect, right? So we're not our body, we're not our feelings, we're not our intellect, right? So what are we, right? The observer. The highest self is the observer.
Yes, I remember they talk about that in my meditations.
So when, and see, this is why you can use this without sitting there and closing your eyes and umming for like an hour. So when I was doing this, like he was talking us through this meditation, and I got, okay, yep, I'm observing my thoughts, and I literally like detached, like not detached, like was, I don't know, any definition you want to give to it, I was observing my thoughts and got that was not me, that was like thoughts, right? Like accumulated somewhere over life. Like every thought that we have is accumulated from somewhere. Right?
Very true.
And it's just repetitive, right? It's like a radio, right? It's recycled. So, you know, thoughts are recycled. And we give definitions to these thoughts and experience feelings and emotions from these thoughts and have reactions in our body from them. So I remember there was this point where I was the observer, and I was like, I just felt like I was floating, and I really got that I wasn't my thoughts, and I wasn't that body that I was connecting to, and there was just a state of peace, and, you know, it just felt like light in my mind. So when I learned that, I took that with me, and, you know, they talk us through, when you have a thought, you experience it. So you view it as the observer, right? Instead of attaching yourself and identifying with that thought.
Yeah.
So when you're identifying with that thought, you're saying, I am my mind, right?
Yes. Yeah. Then you attach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like when you're experiencing pain in your body, I am my body, right? No, my body is experiencing pain.
Yeah. And that's amazing.
Yeah. So that was, yeah, right? Like,
yeah.
And you can also, it's also humbling as well. Like if you've done something well, like, you know, back when I learned this when I was heavily working as a personal trainer, and I was very strong and very fast in running.
I remember you were like lifting like massive weights, and you still do actually.
Actually, a lot less now, like way half.
Me too. Yeah, I'm the same.
Like it was crazy. The things that my body was able to do was something I'd never perceived for myself. And honestly, it was never even a goal. Like when I became a personal trainer, I wasn't like, I want to get strong. Like one day I just lifted weights and then they just got more and more. I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't even want to do this.
Yeah.
But I'm not my body, right? This is the body that my soul chose.
Yeah.
Right?
It was given to you as a gift.
Yeah, it's a gift. Exactly, right? So we, especially as we get older, like we put ourselves down for that aging. Like it's like common for women especially, like to put ourselves down. But no, like think about everything your body's done and been through, like, and then what you can do. Like we can freaking give birth. Like that's freaking crazy and still scares the shit out of me. But like your body, right? So anyways, we are not our body, okay? Right? So then we're able to, like, I've literally observed pain and the pain has been less, right? So next time, you experience pain, and you've probably done this as well because we've been through a lot of
dissociate that so that the pain is reduced.
You could use that word, but I love the word observe. Like,
right.
Like, it's like, okay, there's a body and it's experiencing pain, and my soul is in this body. And when you observe it, it's like I literally feel that pain go less. And same with the emotion and because emotions are a reaction to thoughts, right? So when we have that thought, instead of reacting, observing, that's a meditation.
Yeah. It's interesting because I do a lot of work with clients on like emotions and detachments and thoughts and all of that. And a lot of it is just observing, actually. It's just observing like different past events and all these things and making sense of it. And as soon as they detach from the emotions attached to those events, it's like, it's that they're a new person, or like they're able to go with new events in the future and be able to deal with it in different ways because they learn from it. So anyway, that's interesting.
I think it's so amazing. Like you honestly like caught me so off guard before this call. Like
who knew?
Yeah. Like we've had like so many amazing discussions about these, I like to call, ideas that people can take on to be more powerful in their life. But we've had so many passionate talks about it because we're both so into it. Like and then right before this call I was like, oh, I don't really want to share this to my Facebook, I'm not sure. And you just spoke to me, and I like saw me for me and were just like so direct, and I was like, shit, you're freaking amazing.
We're connected, we are one.
I think you're amazing. Like, and for people to be able to implement stuff like this, like you would be amazing, right? You're perfect, because I love communicating these ideas, but you're the one working with people and taking them through them, so then they're able to implement it. I like introducing the ideas through.
But we kind of need each other as well. There's the ideas people and the sharer, like as you, and then there's also people doing the work as well and getting really into the details. So I'm so humbled from what you've said, and I just have so much respect for you in what you share and your knowledge. It's like it's really amazing as well.
Not my knowledge.
It's not you are not your thoughts, you are not your knowledge. You're just a being. Lastly, I want to I'm not sure if we really touched on this, but agreement. Do you want to just expand on that? About
so I have my own personal examples here, right? I think examples really help. So being an Indian female, obviously, like as I've explained, I went to uni because my parent, like straight out of high school, into a degree, I didn't really know why I was doing it, because my parents had pretty much, and this isn't wrong of my parents, this is just their social conditioning, and they were doing the right thing by me by wanting me to go to uni based on their experiences. So they wanted the best for me, so that's why they wanted me to go to uni. But for me, like I was at uni and I was doing it for their agreement. Yeah. Now, you've known me for a long time, and people who've known me for a long time will know that I've done like some Indian like modeling and acting here and there. And from a very young age, I think maybe because I'm North Indian and North Indians are fairer skinned and lighter eyed, like they look a bit different. So I was kind of told from a young age that I should, like people would randomly here and there, a lot. I felt like it was a lot, and it was kind of like, they would tell me I need to try Bollywood. They're like, oh, you look like you should be in Bollywood. And, people used to say it to my mum as well. Like she's extremely, I look, a bit like her, like, but my parents were very, very, like, they come from a conservative background. So like, no, like you're not doing that. We don't want you to do that. Bad things happen there. So they're coming from their experience. So because they are, my family are the most important people to me, I was like not going to do it because of their,
they didn't approve.
Yeah. So, even though there were like friends saying do it, whatever, the most important people to me were my parents. Yeah. Like I wouldn't do anything without their support. And because I felt like their support like was my life. Like so because that wasn't there, I wouldn't do it. Yeah. But like, and there were times in the past where I was like, I'd wonder like if I did it, and I knew there was a way, like I could have done it. Like if I made that choice, like I was an adult, like I could have, gone and not lived with them and like, gotten a job, done it on the side. Like I could have made it happen if I really wanted, but to me that was more important. Their agreement was more important.
Right.
So that's an example. So if you think of like, if there are people like in high school or university or young people or people that just have things that they want to do and are scared of doing it because of other people's agreement, or if you're in relationships that, you're doing it for society or for your friends or your family or just to look like things are okay, like, that's all attached to wanting people's agreement. Like, we're so scared of just being authentic, right? Because that agreement is a social construct, right? But without disagreement, or I wouldn't say disagreement, without different ideas and different thoughts, there would be no growth, there would be no innovation, there would be no amazing things that happen in the world. There would be no us moving forward towards this higher vibration. So we need to be okay with other people having different thoughts and ideas and wanting different things, because we're not all here to do the same thing. It's okay if we're not the same. What I perceive so much is just people scared of not having agreement. Like even just in day-to-day conversations, like we don't need to think the same. Like we don't need to have each other's tick of approval in life. And the more people that let other people be themselves and be themselves, the world will move in a better direction, because there's so much pointless conflict that comes out of just like people wanting to have the same opinions. It's like, okay, cool. You do you, I do me, like, and it's fine. Like there's no right or wrong. Two people can be right and not have the same opinion. Like we need to stop trying to censor ourselves and other people.
And just having that plain respect for each other as well, and having those boundaries, I think, is a big thing, especially when it comes to like those one-on-one relationships, maybe more intimate romantic relationships. It can get quite heated when people are imposing their beliefs or wanting someone to be a certain way so that they can fit into the mold, and there's a lot of that conflict that comes up, which is like, it's natural. Sometimes it happens and it's okay, hence like people divorce and they break up, but it's more like sometimes you don't know until you go through it to really experience what the conflict is like, but also just having that plain respect that they are not you and you are not them, and that you're here for different reasons as well. So I guess the key thing here is, my perspective is like having that permission to allowing each other to have our own permissions, so that we can fully express ourselves as individuals. And rather than like some couples are like, oh, we're just one person and like we do the same thing, and then it gets like, they're not expressing.
So so say, you and I are best friends and you go do this coaching business and I'm like, oh, why are you doing that? Right. So if I'm disagreeing and critical of you and I'm putting time and energy in that, I probably, like, from your end, you give compassion, firstly. Secondly, this person probably doesn't have a strong enough sense of themselves if they're doing that. Yeah. So, and this is a lot of people, like, in the world, but people need to focus on living themselves aligned instead of their, and it really, it's not like they're doing something wrong. It's literally human nature. Like, it's human nature for all of us wanting to be the same, but we can have compassion because usually that person hasn't associated themselves strongly enough with what's important to them. Like, if someone's in a relationship and they need the other person to, and look, outside of people that, need to keep jobs to fend for their families and stuff like that, like, say it's, just someone that's in a relationship, not like no kids or anything like that. And, and one person wants the other person to be and do a certain way. They probably, like, if they probably don't have a strong enough sense of self, like, they don't know what's important to them enough, because their happiness and their fulfillment and their, all of that is dependent on someone else's actions, right? Like, we need to have our actions, also our fulfillment and our joy and purpose all dependent on us. If we're putting it in someone else's hand, then we take away our ownership and our control.
Like, when you remove that person or for any reason, that dependency, then you become like, once you remove that dependency, and if that person's not there, then you don't know how to deal with yourself, like when you're left just like, as well.
Which is not wrong. It's human nature, but it's something to, like, it. And funnily enough, when I was, like, after that relationship, I broke up with him, like, my early 20s. So I was living with my dad at the time, and he used to go away camping a lot. He used to go away on, like, even meditation retreats a lot. And after that relationship ended, and I was living out of home, but then I moved back to have, like, the family support, and he went away and I was, like, alone. Like, I had, like, social events on, but I didn't know how to be alone in a house. And I, like, messaged him and I was like, oh, like, I don't really like being alone. like I don't know what I'd said. I'd said something and he was like, oh, Natasha, you need to like your own company. And, like, that was, like, all he said to me. Dads are very, like, straight to the point. He was like, oh, like, you're going to be, like, that's your, you're going to be in a relationship with yourself forever. Like, you need to like your own company. And he was always being a little bit of a smart ass. He was like, oh, you need to like your own company. And
but that's a golden lesson.
Literally, I was like, actually, he's so right. Like, who else am I going to be with for the rest of my life other than me?
Like, so you have to like yourself, otherwise it's going to be a miserable life.
Yes. And that actually took me to a point where I was very happy on my own, to the point where I wasn't being open to relationships, but I'm not there anymore. Like, I'm definitely open, but to relationships, but it almost had an effect where I was like, I'm too, like,
the opposite. You went the opposite way. Which happens. Like, it's life, right? Like, sometimes you have too much of one thing, then you go to the other side, and then eventually you equal out.
Well, like, it's all about, what's important to you in life. And I was, so happy on my own because I was just having so much fun where I was just, like, doing so many things I loved, meeting so many new people, and just, like, not meeting someone I was, like, could see being with me. Whereas I guess now I'm a lot more clearer on what I want as well, because I know myself so much better. I still didn't know myself. I was still learning who I was. And that's what I would suggest to people, like, if you need other people to agree with you, or if you're attached to other people doing or being a certain way, then, like, what does that mean about yourself, actually? Like, what are you actually not doing for you? Like, that's where I'd probably put the focus back on, is you and your life, and, like, what's important to you. Like, and I think it's okay to want certain types of people in your life. Like, if we know who we are, then we know what type of people we want to be around and what type of people we want to get close to. But we don't want to put our fulfillment and happiness in someone else's hand, because then we have no ownership, and literally
and then the power goes out. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I suppose one of the things that I sorry,
I just realized the time we've gone.
Oh, yeah, clearly we were in our flow state, or in this meditative state. But I guess like with like a final point is, and a lot of what I teach people is like, you know, first of all, you've got to look at yourself in the mirror, and the judgments that you put upon other people, it's like a reflection of yourself and maybe your own sort of fears and insecurities and all that. So have a look at that first and look inward before you start sort of, you know, judging other people or what they lack. But however, judgment is normal. Everyone judges each other, so you can't stop it. It's one of those things you can't stop as well. So it's human nature. But yeah.
Yeah, it is. But it gives you a lot of freedom if you don't judge either. And look, yeah. I'm not like completely non-judgmental, but how does it serve you? That's the only thing I'd ask.
Yeah, to just having that self-awareness.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we've covered so much ground tonight. It's been a power-packed conversation. Would suggest that people would maybe do a replay on some of the parts, because there's a lot of things. Even I'm going to do like a few replays, because I think that you've given so much value this evening, and like you've really you have so much to share, and I know you have so much more to share. So yeah, really, really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for becoming my guest this evening. If people want to you know, find out more about you, or the value that you give and learn more from you, where do they find you?
I'm most active probably on Instagram, even though I'm not as active as I'd like to be. But my Instagram is NATASHADIPALI, so Natasha Arora. Just that. If you search me, you're welcome to follow me. If people have questions about anything maybe we've covered, drop it in the comments as well. Yeah, we get back. Respond. And like I'd probably, like an action for people from this, it would be to like observe and write down your attachments, your expectations, and you know what you haven't done because of agreement maybe.
Yeah.
Then that'll help you realize what kind of stops you in life.
Amazing tip. Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for your time.
And Pauline, so you know, my network, how will they reach you?
So for me, Facebook, I'm very active on Facebook. So just DM me or comment and I'll get back to you. Yeah. So I do a lot of change work, a lot of mindset and emotions, transformation work. So if anyone sort of has anything that they're working on that finding a bit difficult, that's what I help with. So yeah, you can reach out for more information. Yeah.
So direct to the point. You're so direct to the point and just like straight up. I was just like, whoa, like before live today. I'm like super impressed by you.
Thank you. Let's chat more after this. We can continue the conversation. All right, cool. All right, well, good evening. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Thank you for watching. And yeah, we'll all stay connected. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.